Okay, well, welcome to Tryon Palace, everybody. My name is Sam. I'm one of the gardeners here. I'm responsible for everything on the west side of the palace. And we decided, since it's such a glorious day outside, that we would give everyone a little tour of one of our most prominent gardens, the Latham garden. So if you'll follow me and watch your step as we come in here. The Latham garden is predominantly yaupon hedges. The outside perimeter is boxwood hedges. We change the interior flowers out about 3 times a year. Right now, our tulips are up right now. These just started coming up about 3 weeks ago, and unfortunately, due to our temperature fluctuations over the seasons, our blooms are a little not uniform, but we still get a very beautiful show anyway. So we have tulips underneath that come up through the ground, and then violas on top of that sort of fill in between everything. So I think it's a really nice show, regardless of the uneven height of everything. The hedges themselves just got cut. I cut them about a month ago, I would say, so they're looking nice and fresh, but no new growth quite yet. We're hoping for a little more warmer weather before that happens. So if you'll follow me out this way. Right here is our Chinese Snowball Viburnum. We have them on all 4 corners of the Latham, but this one is probably the most beautiful right now, and it's almost essentially in full bloom, and it'll probably start leafing out in a couple more weeks. Mulching was probably my biggest project this winter, and so hopefully that'll alleviate a lot of my weeding struggles this coming summer. All along the back here we have Burford Hollies, and last spring I cut them all the way back to the ground. They used to be about 8 feet tall and completely unmanageable. So about, I would say, a year ago essentially, I cut all of these back down to the ground so we can make them more of a true hedge as opposed to like individual trees. So keep on keeping on. Our daffodils here. This is probably our last one blooming. Eventually these will all sort of go by the wayside and go dormant, and other things will take their place behind it. I really like this tulip mixture because all the varying colors, they tend to complement each other. The whites and the yellows are really highlighted by the dark reds and purples. This is a single late tulip mixture. They're hybrids. Unfortunately, they don't perennialize very well, so we have to dig them up each year. Unfortunately, I would like to see them come back each and every season, but that's just not the case. There are a lot of species tulips that are perennials that I'll show you in a little bit. Yeah, so you can see here, these light purple ones were probably the first ones to come up, and they were really, really short. So, and then the yellow ones and the whites are probably our most successful. Please don't look at the fountain. If I had known this was going to happen today, I would have done a little more work on details. One of my favorite perennials is coming up right now. This is a bronze fennel. This right here. So it's just like fennel that you would cook with, but it has a more of a brownish copper texture. And it's an absolute favorite of one of our native butterflies, the larva, eastern swallowtail. They absolutely will devour that fennel. But it grows fast enough that anything that's eaten grows back pretty quick. So all along here, eventually we'll have irises and daylilies and aster and ajuga. That'll all be coming up pretty soon. You can see along the back here, my oak leaf hydrangeas are just starting to leaf out, and fronted by this white encore azalea. One little known fact about this garden is that despite it looking symmetrical, it's a false perspective. So it actually gets narrower the farther in we get. So the front of the garden is actually wider than this back portion. But because so like I said, it's a false perspective. So if you just looking at it, you wouldn't get the sense that it's asymmetrical, but when in fact it actually is. So if you look over here, this is one of my favorite aspects. So this is something to think about for all season gardening. So these oak leaf hydrangeas are deciduous. So beneath it, I have hellebores and holly ferns planted. So while the oak leaves have lost their leaves, there's no blooms, we have a lot of interest down low to sort of help fill in and transition with the seasons. A lot has changed in this garden over the last several years. It used to be incredibly hodgepodgey to come up with a word. And so all the shrubs you see in here have been planted within the last 1 to 2 years. I've made a real conscious effort to bring a little more continuity and a little more sense back to this garden. The perennials are I just let them do their thing, because you can almost let they just fill in and are gorgeous on their own right. All right, keep on keeping on. So along the wall here is something that I'm really excited about. This is a creeping fig, and it's on either side, and I've been attempting to cultivate it so that it eventually will fill up the entire wall, so that when you're looking out across the hedges, you don't just get this hedge brick wall. It's sort of a green transition, and it blends much more effectively. But creeping fig is a great one if you're looking for something to sort of fill up a brick wall, or get that sort of Victorian English garden look. So up here is actually what you can sort of see the pink flowers. Those are those perennial tulips I was talking about. This is one of my favorite native flowers right here. This is Columbine. So it makes a fantastic ground cover. So all these little flowers will seed out and fill in over time. So you can see how short it is. It shoots up these real tall flower stalks, but it stays so tight and mounded that it really helps keep the weeds down. A little more Columbine right there. This is one of my favorite shrubs in this whole garden. This is actually a pomegranate. It's ornamental, so it doesn't grow the big palm, wonderful grocery store pomegranates, but it will. And unfortunately, this is a male, so it won't bear any fruit. But the flowers on it are bright orange, very striking, and it just makes for a beautiful shaped shrub. Yeah, you can see here these are flower buds just starting to come out right here, individual. So they have this little waxy coating, and then from that, all the petals and the flower will explode out of that. So this is what's pretty much left over with our perennial tulips. This was Tulipa bakeri, baker's tulips. And then this was Lady Jane tulips. These are all perennial. They naturalize very effectively. So if you're looking to really just fill a space over time, this is probably with a very high color contrast, the sort of silvery blue foliage. This is, you can't beat it. It really is one of my favorites. And then combined with these Atillas that I've recently planted, which will sucker over time, and they're just starting to put off their blooms. If you'll come in close here, if you guys can see that, that's a little bloom. And this is a Merlot, so it'll have like a very sweet smell to it. And Atilla is one of my favorite because it blooms in late spring, early summer, and then in fall it'll have very beautiful fall color, oranges and reds, and then even the stems themselves have a dark red hue to them. So they're a real fantastic all-season plant. Yeah, we're just sort of in that transition period where all of our spring blooms are heading out and our early summer blooms are just starting. So like I said, Atilla blooms are just starting. Rose Campion is going to be just starting. All that Maidenhair is finally filling in. Maidenhair Fern just starting to fill in. This is one of my favorite plants here, but unfortunately it got absolutely torched by a cold snap that we had recently. This is called Atilla, or a ground orchid, and you can see this bloom that got spared here. Absolutely beautiful. Another one that naturalizes very, very quickly, very easily, and it comes in all sorts of different colors. This one is sort of, I don't know, magenta, but they have them in purples and whites as well. So I guess we can head back down and finish up at the other end. This is actually this is a incredibly unique bay tree in that the leaves are much narrower, and which compared to this one over here, which is sort of a standard bay. You can see how much narrower that one is than the standard, and this one actually has pink flowers as opposed to a yellow. And this was another tree that had gotten way out of control, and I actually coppiced it very recently, so you can see all these fresh cuts that I made. And the intention is to encourage all that sucker growth, so that I can turn it more into a hedge as opposed to a tree. So a multi-stemmed shrub instead of a 15-foot tree. And so we'll finish up heading back towards the pleached alley. Again, here's a nice little patch of those Lady Jane tulips. Really great for filling in sunny spots. And this is a very early, this is one of our Baptisias, false indigo. Very early bloomer, this white one, Baptisia Alba. It's, I mean, one of my favorites. You really can't beat it because it's perennial, so it dies back to the ground, but it grows so rapidly and becomes so full that you can treat it like a shrub, a dieback shrub. And again, this is another one we're having another bed that I've incorporated a lot of new shrubs. This one I'm very excited about. This is I believe this is a blue satin or purple satin rose of Sharon. So all summer long it's going to have dark, I would say dark magenta flowers all summer. Very excited about it. So again, so this is actually a really cool to look at. You can see how that Maidenhair Fern just fills up everything. This is a very shady spot because of the crepe myrtles here and the oak trees all around us. So this is very shady, but it's not too coarse. It's not a tight growing ground cover, so everything can still grow up through it. The tulips, the irises, the daffodils, and you can see how the hellebore has intermingled with it. So Maidenhair Fern, if you have a shady spot and you really want to fill it with some color, can't go wrong with it. And from here you would head down into the pleached allée that we have. This is the beautiful show of the Spanish bluebells on either side. I could probably talk all day about all these gardens, but I won't take up any more of your time. But thank you guys for hanging out with us this morning, and come back when we're open again. I can't wait to see you.